What if I told you that your greatest strength begins not when you react, but when you refuse to? When you choose to remain steady, composed, unshaken, that's the moment you seize real power. The world watches those who are unruffled. The storms come for all of us. Harsh words, disappointments, unexpected failures. But the ones who master stillness, they navigate life with unbreakable poise, not because they're indifferent, but because they've trained themselves to respond with purpose, not emotion. When you step into a room, when chaos is circling, when egos clash and noise rises, who do people look to? Not the loudest voice, but the one who holds the silence. The one who owns their calm owns the space. You don't need to be louder to command respect. You need to be more composed. That's the difference between temporary influence and lasting impact. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor who led not by shouting, but by demonstrating inner peace amidst external turmoil. His leadership didn't waver because his mind didn't flinch. That's the power I want you to cultivate, because real authority, it doesn't need to declare itself. It's felt. So let me ask you, when was the last time you held your reaction? The last time you paused instead of pounced? That moment of stillness. That's your control button. How many regrets have we collected from speaking too soon, acting too fast, letting our emotions grab the wheel? Now imagine who you could become if you mastered just a 5-second pause. 5 seconds that change your trajectory. I'll tell you this, it's not the waves that define the ship. It's the captain at the helm. And you, my friend, are the captain. Don't let fleeting emotions dictate your direction. Because the moment you allow anger, doubt, jealousy, or even excitement to decide for you, you hand the keys to the world. You let it steer your journey. But when you remain centered, when your emotions rise, and you still choose response over reaction, you've graduated. That's emotional sovereignty. You aren't here to be a puppet to circumstance. You're here to be the architect of your path. This isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about recognizing feelings for what they are, signals, not commands. When frustration whispers, when fear nudges, when impatience kicks, you say, "Thank you for the alert," and then you decide. Because discipline isn't about denial. It's about direction. And here's the strategy. First, observe. Let others lose their cool. Let the noise swirl. You observe. You feel. You process. Then you move, on your terms. When the criticism hits, when the doubts creep in, when the mockery echoes, you don't have to engage. You build. You construct. You create. Silence can be a weapon. Stillness can be strategy. Imagine this. Someone questions your value. The old you defends, explains, argues. The new you? You nod. You smile. You keep building. Let your work speak. Let your consistency scream. The calmest presence in the storm often becomes the most magnetic, because people crave stability. They follow clarity. And clarity comes from knowing that your emotions are your guests, not your rulers. You've seen it. The leader who keeps their tone steady when others yell. The creator who continues the craft despite rejection. The visionary who keeps the mission in sight while others play games of pride. They don't shrink to the noise. They rise above it. Because here's the truth. Your presence trains others how to treat you. When you walk with your head high, breath steady, and mind clear, the world aligns. Because life doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you embody. And if you embody peace, confidence, unshakable focus, that's what reflects back. You broadcast your energy before you ever say a word. So let's reset the frequency. Stop chasing the applause. Build your legacy. Stop defending your pride. Construct your empire. Stop reacting to every slight. Direct your focus forward. This is how true power is forged. Not in proving, but in producing. The loudest ones often feel the emptiest. But the steady ones, they are the ones who lead, who win, who endure. The question is, which one are you becoming? Let's rewind, back to where it all begins, the mind. Because before you command the room, before you lead with presence, before the world mirrors back your confidence, it starts inside. You must first teach yourself how to steer your own energy. You see, life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't ask if your emotions are aligned or if your confidence is prepped. It moves. The winds blow, the tides shift, and unless you've planted your roots deep, you'll be swayed like everyone else. But not you. You're not here to drift. You're here to direct. And that starts by recognizing your mind is the control center. What you feed it, how you train it, determines whether you lead your life or life leads you. Think about athletes like Serena Williams or entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos. They didn't rise by chance. They rose by crafting mental fortitude. Every time life threw a challenge, they didn't crumble, they recalibrated. The difference between the shaken and the steadfast, mental conditioning, and you right now are training. Every time you resist the impulse to react, you're strengthening your inner muscles. Every moment you choose patience over pride, response over reaction, you're fortifying your mind's resilience. You're building the kind of power that doesn't shatter under pressure. Because here's the reality, you will be tested. Opinions will come at you. Criticism will find you. Failures will brush against your ego. But those moments, they're not threats. They're checkpoints. They ask you one thing. Are you still in control? If the answer is yes, you pass. If the answer is no, then good. You've just found where to grow. See, emotional mastery is a craft. It's built in the moments no one sees. When you rise early to set your intentions. When you reflect before responding. When you breathe before reacting. That discipline becomes your edge. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to fight to prove worth. You simply have to own your frequency. Because people don't follow noise. They follow energy. And energy is transmitted not just by your words, but by your state of being. When you enter a space calm, collected, composed, you elevate the room. When you show up grounded, others settle. When you speak with measured clarity, ears open. That's leadership, not in title, not in accolades, but in energy. Ask yourself, do I lead with presence? Do I bring calm where there's chaos? Do I control my emotions, or do they control me? Because the person who governs themselves governs their life. And it starts by knowing this. Your energy is your responsibility. It is not for others to maintain for you. You decide how you respond to the world. You decide what gets your focus. You decide which words to speak and when to hold your peace. This is the art of energetic discipline. And when you master it, you move through life untethered. Not because the world stops being loud, but because you've mastered your own volume. This is your time to reclaim the steering wheel, to stop being pulled by every mood, every comment, every provocation, to start setting your course with precision, with power, with presence. Because the world doesn't follow those who react. It follows those who lead, and leadership starts within. Now, let's flip the perspective. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. Tension is thick, voices are raised, fingers pointed. Everyone is battling to be the loudest, the smartest, the rightest. And there you are, still observing, composed. You speak not to add noise, but to add clarity. And when you do, the room shifts. Not because you overpowered anyone, but because your presence carried more weight than their volume. This is what happens when you master composure. This is what happens when you choose presence over performance. You see, the one who controls the pace controls the space. Not the one who shouts, but the one who remains unshaken. Think about Nelson Mandela. Years in confinement, and yet he emerged not with rage, but with resolve. Not with bitterness, but with balance. His influence wasn't forged in speeches. It was shaped in stillness, in resilience, in presence. That's the blueprint. Because strength isn't loud. Strength is steady. And in a world addicted to reaction, the calm person becomes the most powerful person in the room. You felt it. The weight of a person's energy when they're anchored. When they're not swayed by insults. Not seduced by praise. Not baited by conflict. They move with intention. They act with alignment. And the world, it gravitates towards them. Here's the lesson. You don't need to win every argument to win the room. You need to win your own mind first. Because every reaction has a cost. Every emotional outburst spends a piece of your energy. And energy, like currency, must be spent wisely. Ask yourself before reacting, is this worth my energy? Does this serve my vision? Will this build or break my peace? That's how you start budgeting your emotions. That's how you grow emotionally wealthy. When you conserve your energy for your mission, your craft, your purpose, you build momentum. Instead of burning out on distractions, you burn bright on creation. Imagine channeling all that energy wasted on petty disputes into your projects, your passions, your progress. How far could you go? The answer is, as far as your discipline takes you. Because mastery doesn't come from reacting to every spark. It comes from guarding your fire for what truly matters. Picture this. You're on the cusp of something great. A dream, a breakthrough, a big step. Doubters appear, critics whisper, distractions knock. But you keep building. You keep moving. That's the art of ignoring the noise. That's the power of selective energy. Because not every battle deserves your sword. Some only deserve your silence. And in that silence, you grow stronger. You start building emotional wealth. And emotional wealth is what fuels consistency. It's what lets you wake up every morning focused, aligned, purposeful, instead of drained, scattered, reactive. So here's the challenge. Protect your peace like it's your most prized possession. Spend your energy like it's your most limited resource. Choose your responses like they're investments in your future. Because every decision, every reaction, is either building you or draining you. Choose wisely. When you own this discipline, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you've trained yourself to stay powerful, no matter how loud the world gets. This is your edge. This is your elevation. Lead with it. Let's step even deeper into the art of ownership. You see, too many people move through life as if they're passengers, letting circumstances steer, letting moods dictate, letting others decide their pace. They drift, waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal mood, the external green light. But here's the truth. No one's handing you the keys. You are the driver. Always have been. The question is, are you holding the wheel? Because when you don't, when you live on reaction, you become a character in a story written by someone else. But when you decide to own your energy, your responses, your decisions, you become the author. This is the shift from effect to cause, from waiting to creating. Consider Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't wait for the world to tell him what to paint or invent. He explored, he experimented, he created. Not because someone granted permission, but because he knew he was the source. You are no different. You can't wait for the storm to pass to find peace. You bring the peace, and the storm loses its power. You can't wait for people to validate your path. You build it, and validation becomes irrelevant. Ownership means you generate your own energy. You don't borrow it from applause. You don't outsource it to approval. You become the source. And when you do, life bends to your intention. Picture this. You walk into a challenging situation. Tensions high, uncertainty thick. Most people absorb that energy, they mirror it. But you bring a different current. You bring clarity. You bring direction. Not because the room changed, but because you did. That's real power. The ability to influence without force, to lead without needing to shout, to shift the atmosphere with nothing but your alignment. but it requires constant recalibration. It demands daily decisions. Every morning, ask yourself, am I being the cause or the effect today? Am I setting my direction or letting the world push me around? Am I living by design or by default? Because life will always test your authorship. It will try to write your story with distractions, with criticisms, with setbacks. But you're the pen, you're the ink, you're the script. And here's a truth most forget. You don't have to react to everything. Not every insult requires a defense. Not every challenge demands your attention. Not every opinion deserves a seat in your mind. The more you master the art of ignoring, strategically, consciously, the more energy you preserve for your purpose. You start moving with focus. You start acting with vision. You start creating outcomes, not reacting to obstacles. That's the mark of a builder, a leader, a creator. So ask yourself, where am I still reacting out of habit? What triggers still pull me off course? What distractions am I allowing to rent space in my head? Because once you identify them, you can release them. You can recalibrate. You can choose to act, not because you're provoked, but because you've decided. And that decision, that's the birthplace of power. Real strength isn't loud. It's deliberate. It's in the pause before the reply. It's in the breath before the move. It's in the silence that speaks louder than argument. This is the foundation of mastery. This is how you lead yourself. And when you lead yourself, the world follows. Now, let's talk about your most precious asset, clarity. Because here's the secret. Time isn't your greatest resource. Focus is. You can have hours in a day, but without clarity, they're wasted. You can be busy all day, yet build nothing meaningful. But when you're clear, every minute counts. Every action compounds. But clarity doesn't just appear. It's created. It's earned. And in a world overflowing with noise, distractions, and opinions, clarity becomes your competitive advantage. Think about Steve Jobs. His obsession with simplicity wasn't just aesthetic, it was strategic. He carved space to think, to reflect, to decide. That mental space is what allowed innovation to thrive. You need that same space, because when your mind is cluttered, your path is foggy. When your energy is scattered, your impact is diluted. Clarity comes when you protect your mental environment, when you defend your focus like a fortress. You have to build time for stillness, not as a luxury, but as a necessity, because the most important work doesn't happen in chaos. It happens in calm. 1 hour of undistracted, intentional thought is worth 10 hours of scattered action. So, here's the practice. Create space in your day to think uninterrupted. Ask yourself the hard questions. What matters? What's noise? What's next? Review your direction. Refine your mission. Because clarity simplifies. It sharpens your decisions. It helps you say no with confidence and yes with conviction. When you're clear, you're unshakable. Criticism, it doesn't rattle you because you know where you're headed. Rejection, it doesn't derail you because your mission isn't up for negotiation. Distractions, they don't tempt you because your purpose is louder. Imagine living that way, waking up every morning knowing exactly what you're building, why you're building it, and how you'll protect that focus at all costs. That's the mindset of leaders. That's the posture of high performers. You don't need a clearer calendar. You need a clearer mind. You don't need more hours. You need more intention. Because your success is directly tied to how fiercely you guard your clarity. If you don't, the world will write your to-do list. If you don't, others will fill your time with their priorities. If you don't, your energy will leak, scattered across tasks that don't serve your vision. But when you protect your clarity, when you lead your days with precision, your outcomes shift. You start moving from reaction to creation, from busy to effective, from scattered to strategic. So today, decide this. My mind is sacred space. My focus is my currency. My clarity is my crown. And I will guard it because my future depends on it. That's not just mindset. That's a mission. Let's finish where your real transformation begins, within. Because none of this mastery, none of this clarity, none of this presence matters without the discipline to apply it. Discipline is your foundation. It is the highest form of self-respect. It's not a punishment. It's a promise, a commitment to the person you've decided to become. Every time you follow through, every time you honor your word to yourself, you're building a reputation with the most important person in your life, you. Confidence? It's not magic. It's the byproduct of keeping promises to yourself. You wake up early when you said you would. You show up to the work even when motivation fades. You practice, you build, you refine, especially when no one is watching. That's where real confidence is born, not in applause, but in private victories. You don't need validation when you trust yourself. You don't need permission when your consistency has made you powerful. And when setbacks come, because they will, you don't crumble. You recalibrate, because you know who you are, not because someone told you, but because you've proven it to yourself. This is the muscle you're building. Discipline when no one sees. Focus when no one reminds you. Progress when no one applauds. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't need the world to believe in them, because they believe in themselves deeply, undeniably, unshakably. And here's what's beautiful. The world starts to mirror that. Opportunities flow to the consistent. Respect gravitates to the disciplined. Success finds those who've already prepared for it. But this isn't just about achievements. It's about identity. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when things get hard? Who are you when the noise gets loud? Because that's the person life will reward. That's the version of you that's unstoppable. So let me ask you, what promises have you broken to yourself? What commitments have you postponed? What version of you is waiting just on the other side of consistency? You don't have to wait for the right time. There is no perfect day, no flawless mood, no ideal condition. There is only now. There is only the choice to begin. And when you begin, when you keep moving forward, you become undeniable. Because you've built it not just in skill, but in spirit. This is how power is built. Quietly, daily, relentlessly, until the life you've designed isn't a dream, it's your reality. Because the person who governs their mind, their energy, their actions, that person is limitless. And that person is you.